What is up, guys? Harley just dropped their first teaser for the 2026 lineup. I say that because it's a two-parter. They just dropped it, and I believe it's January 16th, I think. They're going to drop part 2. So let's talk about it. No intro. Let's just get right into the business. Alright, so Harley dropped this like cinematic talk about what they have going on, what they're doing, future, what they have done. They've talked to multiple different people. If you haven't watched it, I'll try to link it down below, but go watch. You can just Google it. It'll pop up. But Harley's 2026 lineup. So they kind of come out with like all their bikes out on the stage. They talk to multiple different people. They go to the factories. They go to the dealership. They go to a bunch of different stuff and kind of like give you this behind the scenes, kind of like Go America type video. And I think that's absolutely amazing. I think it's really smart to kind of like push that propaganda or whatever to try to show like American built motorcycles. I think it's really important, and I think there's been a disconnect with the motor company and the dealers and the consumers. So I feel like this is a pretty good kind of comeback. Maybe some people will see it as hokey, but I think it's a pretty good like coming back to what you need to and getting like everything kind of lined back up with the business. But one of the things, they kind of go like in order or like different categories and kind of show you the bikes. But I really enjoyed them going to the factories because it kind of showed some behind the scenes stuff. And I'm sure they didn't get any employee that was upset about working for Harley because everyone was super chipper. But they were showing people talking about generations that worked at Harley. I believe there was one kid, he was like third generation factory worker. That's absolutely amazing. I'm somebody who works in a factory, and while my dad didn't, there are people there that where I worked was a third generation worker. And I thought that's kind of cool. I think it's kind of cool. It's crazy to think, but there are people that go and just clock in and clock out every day that just build stuff that we use every day. And you don't have to be a super skilled worker for the most part. A lot of factories will train you at the job, and most of the time nobody actually has to be smart to do these jobs. It's just a repetitive thing, and it's great and it's easy, and usually there's pretty good like job retention, and the benefits are usually good even if the pay isn't amazing, but typically the pay is not too bad. Where I work, there was this one guy, it was pretty good. He was third generation, and he came in basically bottom level, and he kind of bounced around in different departments and got himself to a point to where he's younger than me, and actually left the plant, went to go somewhere else, and is now currently making more money than I do. So I think that's pretty cool, and Harley tried to like show that and kind of showcase that and just kind of show the love for the motor company that the employees had. Now, of course, don't get me wrong, I understand that there's probably plenty of employees that work there that absolutely hate the place. It's like that at my work. It is what it is. But I'm sure more often than not, they're grateful for the opportunity. And it's really just kind of cool to see that. And I think it's good for the brand to show those different things. So one thing I feel like Harley really showed was the engine and the differences they've made, some of the upgrades, and basically like where they've came in that M8 line. And they talked about they're kind of vague in my opinion, but they talked about some of the upgrades they've did. They talked about the cylinder heads, and they showed a little bit of that. They showed some different things that they have done to try to make the engine better. And they also really kind of like interweb that into talking about the engine modes and the different things that they're doing in the future and what they're doing right now, these new bikes. Talking about different engine modes where you can kind of get that tune from the factory. I'll say that because when you get a car, vehicle, bike, whatever, from the factory, you're probably not getting 100% throttle, and it's going to be a little delayed, and it's going to be just a little bit subdued for ease of riding, ease of driving. So when you get a tune, it's kind of night and day a lot of times, mainly just because the throttle has been manipulated. But possibly from the factory now, you might get that sport mode or whatever, and all that's gone. You're going to get that hit that you're wanting, but the person who just wants to be chill can go into a normal mode and not have to deal with all that. I think that is probably the best and biggest piece of technology that they can put into a new bike. I personally don't care for the different things they've done. Speaking on technology, they're starting to try to introduce blind spot monitoring and possibly like rear monitoring maybe. I believe that's coming. Do I care about it? Absolutely not. I think it's whatever. I think it's just going to cost more money. I think that's another way that they're going to make these things standard, and they're going to charge you, 10 times what it costs for them to do, just so they can make money. I don't really care for all the nannies. It just isn't me. But Harley is moving up and up. I know other companies are doing it, but I bet you that stuff is going to be coming before too long. It was kind of cool to show the amount of passion that different people had, and there was one thing that kind of stuck out in my mind when they were talking, and it was just talking about like Harleys being generational, being passed down, and the guy made a comment that you don't see Harleys in junkyards, and that kind of spawned something in my head, because I was like, you know what, you kind of don't. Harleys kind of stick around forever. They stick around for a long time. And do they get junked? Of course they do. But they're just that bike that holds some value. Now, of course, if you look on Marketplace, you see people who think they're worth the moon, and they're not, because it really depends on the model. But a riding Harley will always have a decent amount of value, pretty much no matter how old it is. There are some, exceptions to the rule, but for the most part, Harley's going to retain a pretty decent value, even as it ages, and then at a certain point, it's probably going to start to come back up. But overall, they showed, I would say, like a small glimpse of some of the models. Nothing too really new yet. I feel like they really downplayed what everyone thought they were getting. I thought we were going to see some new stuff. I don't think they really showed much new, in my opinion. They didn't. I wanted to see a little bit more about the Nightster and see if they were going to really expand that line. They showed the Sportster S more. I don't know why they're still pushing that bike. I think that bike is dead on arrival. That Nightster, in my opinion, needs to just be the Sportster line, and they need to focus on the Nightster. I think they need to have the most stripped down version as possible, and they need to have a Nightster ST to get above that special and put that 1250 in there and really give it some power. I think the Sportster S needs to go. I think they're just holding on to that name. The Sportster is dead. It's been dead, gone, bye. It's not coming back unless you redesign another bike, because that Sportster S that they have ain't cutting it. But all in all, they did show a lot of the paint section too. I forgot to mention that. The painting and just showing the effort that goes into it is pretty top tier. I mean, Harley paint's always been pretty top tier in my opinion. There might be some sections that, and on some bikes, could be possibly questionable. Definitely, you're gonna find some that are rough. But it was really cool to see the factory part. I definitely suggest go look at it and just see that. I thought it was really cool. But all in all, didn't get to see what I wanted. Then, of course, at the very end, they teased the actual stuff that they're going to show in the beginning of 2026. Very interested in seeing that. Want to know how things are going to go. And I think it's going to be pretty good. They did tease like performance. I was looking really hard. I didn't slow anything down, but I was really looking hard to see a glimpse of different models. They did not talk about any new models. We know that they're supposed to be getting the Sprint. They did say that in earlier, not in this video, but they did say earlier that supposed to be getting the Sprint and possibly another model, but they're not really saying too much about what it's going to be. It's just a lot of speculation. I was hoping to see something about that, but I hope and think we're going to see more information, if not maybe a real full bike in 2026 at that press release. So definitely looking forward to that. We'll see what happens. But I wanted to jump on here, do a little quick video. I want to know what you think. Comment down below if you watch that video. What do you think they're going to be doing forward? How do you think they're going to be doing in 2026 in the next year? I think Indian's going to come strong and they're going to push hard. And I want to see what Harley's going to do. Harley's got a new CEO. Indian's got a new CEO. I think 2026 is going to be a big battle of competition. And I think it's going to spark more competition because I feel like Indian's going to push harder and Harley's going to come back even harder. Remember, competition is amazing for the consumer. So I think we're going to see some more radical stuff. Obviously, prices have been going up and up and up. And in this video, all they talked about was Premier stuff and technology and all the new stuff. And I would love to see a stripped down bike. I want to see the cheapest bagger imaginable. And I would love to get an even cheaper version of the Nightster. Maybe that's what the Sprint will be. But I would also like to see a $15,000 version of the Nightster. Give it like a Nightster ST. Get that 1250 in there. And that bike is just going to be radical. Of course, there's some people talking about bring the Bronx back. Are we going to get the Bronx? Like, let's get... I don't know. It's been so long that I just don't foresee that happening. I think it's going to be a little bit too risky, and it's going to be a little bit too high priced. Given where the Nightster's at, I think a full-blown Bronx is not going to work. I think the Nightster ST would kind of be a Bronx if they go like one model up above the Special. Don't know how that's going to go, but I'm intrigued. I'm definitely interested in Harley for the next year, so we'll see what happens. I'll release another video when that extra part comes out in January. We'll see if any predictions are true. Comment down below your predictions, what you're going to think, and we'll see if any of that comes true in the next couple months. But if you don't mind, hit that like button, subscribe if you're not subscribed, and as always, keep it wretched.